Hi, my name's Sarah Hutter. I'm the editor-in-chief for the Loyolan, and we're just about to meet for the Loyolan's first sit-down interview with LMU's president-elect, Thomas Poon. And we're ready. Well, congratulations
Thank you so much.
on being appointed as president-elect. I know this week has been crazy for you, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah.
In 60 seconds or less, can you just introduce yourself to LMU students?
Sure. My name's Thomas Poon. I'm a chemist by training. I'm the executive vice president and provost currently, and I will be your president, your new president. I'm the president-elect currently.
Lovely, lovely. Now, some common themes found in Ignatian spirituality include authenticity, integrity, hope, service, and justice. And what do you say to faculty, staff, and mostly students who feel that LMU has lost some of that authenticity over the past few years?
Oh, well, I don't see LMU as having lost that authenticity. So, for example, I know that that authenticity exists in almost every corner, right? You know, the reason I got into higher education was for students. And that's what every single person here at LMU feels as well. So from faculty, of course, to our amazing staff, especially in enrollment management, career and professional development, student affairs, right? Even the administrators that I've worked with and collaborated with. Everything is about the students and supporting them in our mission. And so it may not be that certain members of our community can always be on the front lines, right, of doing that mission work. But the behind the scenes, it's there. Let me tell you, it is so there. We try to build resources for our mission. We try to build programs and initiatives around mission. So it hurts, it pains me to hear that, but I just want everyone to know that to a person, everyone is committed to the mission here.
I'm going to jump to another question because I
Sure.
think that it ties in more so. Lots of leaders and managers always talk about the phrase, my door is always open.
Yes.
And I know that visibility, especially a physical presence on campus, is something that you've talked a lot about with your presidency.
Yes.
How will you break down some of those perceived barriers between administration and students? More so just where can students find you?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, as provost, I had office hours every week. So that was one possibility, right? But I think as president, you know, that could be a possibility as well. I'm still exploring all the different possibilities. One thing is, instead of just having the door open, I have to get out of the office, right? I have to go to student events. I have to go to faculty events, right? Wellness Wednesday, I've been to a few, but not enough. It's an
Yeah,
amazing,
it is.
amazing program that Student Affairs puts on there.
Everyone comes there. It's
Oh,
the
I
hub
know.
of the week. All
I
the students
know.
go to Wellness Wednesday.
And I love when the tours are here on Wednesdays
Yeah.
because they get to see that vibrancy. So the other thing that has inspired me recently is Pope Francis's synod on synodality, where he's brought in stakeholders from all different areas of the church, right? Lay people, women, civic leaders as well, to talk about church matters, right? And that's something I want to emulate, which is potentially creating a, other than the cabinet, a different type of advisory body for the president, where it would be constituted with different members of our community and perhaps even rotating different stakeholders in and out of the advisory, I don't know the name yet, but advisory group, right?
Would that advisory group consist of faculty members, of students? What would that look like?
Yeah, faculty, students, other administrators that aren't on the cabinet, for example. The cabinet has a lot of access to the president, of course, but others do not, right? Deans don't have as much access to the president. I love our deans, they're amazing, and I want to keep some of those connections, right? And develop new connections. So it's about inviting folks in, but also me getting out more. Yes.
I'm going to broaden this more towards the larger US and not just LMU. There's been some recent executive orders threatening the loss of federal funding and threats to the Department of Education, which has led some to suggest that higher ed is facing an uncertain future. As somebody who's been very involved and immersed in higher education over decades and will soon be leading a Jesuit institution, how do you plan to balance the university's mission with larger legal obligations?
Oh, that's a great question. So, first and foremost, our social justice mission is part of our DNA. It's who we are. So, we can never back down from that, right? One example is DEI. We do DEI because of our Catholicity, right? This is something that has been core to the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, the Marymount Sisters, right? The Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange, our religious charisms. It's been core to them for decades and centuries. And I believe that the First Amendment protects our right to practice this, right? So we will fight this if we are attacked in this regard. We will fight. We have to fight. Because can you imagine if we had none of those things here at LMU? We wouldn't be recognizable, right? That cannot happen. So this is something that I think LMU and other Jesuit institutions, and maybe even other religious institutions, have a special ability to push back, to fight back, right? But to answer your question, yes, this is a time where higher ed is under siege, and it's difficult watching this, right? We have not been immune. We've had some grants canceled, for example. And so we always have to come back to our mission, right? That is foundational to us. That helps us to not be reactive because it is always ever present. And so I think that has helped us so far. I'll give you an example. So for some of these grants that have been canceled, we have been able to bridge some of the staff that have been funded on this grant so that they can continue their work, or they can look for other opportunities, including here at LMU.
Thank you. You mentioned how some of the grants have been cut, and this is a possible trajectory for the next few years. And you talk about wanting to keep fighting.
Yes.
Will you keep fighting if those grants continue to get cut?
Yeah, so with several of the grants that have been cut, they've been cut for, we think, essentially because they have certain keywords in the title or in the narrative. I'll give you one example. One of our grants that was cut had equity in the title, right? So we have appealed as one way to fight. We have also, so we've gone through the appeal process. The other thing we've done is we've partnered with our local representatives in Congress. So if I may, Ted Lieu's office. So he is partnering with us to bring this situation to Congress, right? We were the very first institution in his region to have a grant canceled. There have been more since, right? So now he has more to take to Congress, but we've been partnering with him. We've been partnering with our state representatives as well. So this is one example of how we're fighting. Another example, as I mentioned, of how we're fighting is to fund some of these anyways through our vast resources, right? Because we know that the projects that have been proposed and have been funded are worthy projects, and especially worthy of our mission and our effort and our funding.
So you brought up the First Amendment. I have to make a note of that just as a journalist. What's your position about free expression and the protection of the First Amendment rights on college campuses?
I believe the First Amendment should be honored everywhere, right? But especially on college campuses, because there's a special expression, a particular expression of the First Amendment that college campuses has, and that's called academic freedom, right? Academic freedom is I feel, the foundation of our country, right? Because the academic institutions have always revealed weaknesses in our society, weaknesses in our governance, right? And so we rely on academics to do that. We can only do that through academic freedom. So we will staunchly defend our faculty in their research, in their scholarship, in their public works, right, because of academic freedom. And likewise for our students, they have the right to demonstrate, to protest, right? This is why I love our students in LMU, because our students often do stand in solidarity with just causes. And we always want to be able to support that. Now, I know there's been controversy recently about, well, you have a time, place, and manner policy. How does that support it, right? We feel that those things actually help our students to do this because it provides safe environments for them to express themselves through free speech. So, yeah.
Yeah, so adding on to that, you mentioned the time, place, manner as an example. There's recently been a surge in federal law enforcement action against university students who have taken part in advocacy campaigns. Right. How will you protect LMU students who fear that their safety is threatened in the context of today's political climate?
Yeah, that one's a trickier one to tackle because, yes, because the government is targeting certain constituencies of students, right? Vulnerable constituencies like international students, or not even students, but faculty or staff who are green card holders or visa holders, right? And they're using opportune times to approach these individuals, right? When they're trying to get back into the country, for example. And so I think education is one of the most important ways that we can help to protect these individuals. Because once the government does what it does, it's very difficult for anyone, let alone an academic institution, to extricate the individual from that situation, right? So educating, for example, our international students on their rights and how to avoid these types of attacks is something that we have been doing. We haven't been doing it in a very public way because our students, the vulnerable students and vulnerable populations of staff and faculty are telling us that they don't want to be front and center. They want to be behind the scenes, right? And not a target. So please know that we have been doing these types of outreach and interventions. But I hope that answers your question on how we can protect.
It does. It does.
We knew that our community wanted more information because they were wondering, well, just like you asked, what is LMU doing, right, about these circumstances? And they were coming so fast and furious, almost every day, right? We were getting a new executive order or a dear colleague letter or one action or another from the federal government. And so we decided to create this in brief website, which is lmu.edu/brief, right? And this is a place that we try to update as quickly as possible. And especially when there are actions that directly affect LMU or our constituencies.
I wanted to talk more about your role externally. So we talked about visibility, but there's also a lot of fundraising efforts and working within admissions that the president is responsible for.
Yes.
Higher education experts are suggesting that an enrollment cliff could hit American colleges and universities. How do you plan on keeping LMU a competitive option for students graduating high school?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I want to be clear, the enrollment cliff is a real thing, right? Because it's just based on the birth rates that happened when we had our last recession in 2008. Birth rates dropped and they never came back. And so if you think about 2008, add 18 years to that little baby's life, right? That's 2026, right? So we're very close to when the birth rate is going to affect high school graduations, right? And the number of high school graduates, which means, yes, only the most competitive institutions are going to thrive during the enrollment cliff. Now, fortunately, we started planning for this. I mean, this was one of President Snyder's most revelatory and most impactful actions, which is he wanted LMU to not be a best kept secret anymore, right? and to have more external exposure. And we've done that, right? More and more folks all across the country know about LMU now. Our enrollments have gone from 13,000 when President Snyder arrived to 23,000. Not enrollments, applications. Yeah, 23,000. So people see LMU as a first choice institution, as a viable institution. And then all of the infrastructure that we've built within is one way, you know, all of the programming that we have in student affairs, for example, in mission and ministry, in career and professional development. All of the efforts that we've put into supporting our faculty research and scholarship and teaching, right, and professional development has really set us up well for the enrollment cliff, because students know what a great environment they experience here, right? Academically, co-curricularly, from a service standpoint. And this is all messaged to students on our website, when they come for tours and visits, when they are admitted and then come for admitted students days, right? These are the things that we signal to students. We feel that we have created an environment that will attract students so that we won't be one of the institutions that suffers from the enrollment cliff.
You've worked very closely as second in command with President Snyder. Is there anything that you would do differently in your presidency?
Oh, there are lots of things. Oh, no, sorry. I don't know about that, right? Because that is something that I thought you meant as a provost. There are plenty of things I would do differently as a provost if I could do it again, right?
Well, let's ask that question then too. What are some things you do differently as provost?
Oh, just little things where, you know, I thought, oh, if I had made a different decision, we might have, you know, for example, raised more money, right? Or had more students in this program or that program, right? They're really little things, right? I think for the most part, this institution has made decisions, even during the pandemic, that have kept us thriving, right? As far as the presidency goes, you know, as I mentioned, I'm going to need to consult broadly and frequently, because you know, my leadership style is very collaborative, and I think creativity happens when you bring people from different backgrounds into a room, right? All different types of backgrounds, work experience, life experience, right? And that creativity allows us to innovate. And because LMU is small enough to be nimble, we are really poised to do a lot of innovation, right, going forward. So that's how I see my presidency transpiring, is a lot of consultation, a lot of getting out there and finding out what our community needs. You know, another constituency that I think we need to double down on are our alumni. Right? Our alumni go out and do amazing things, and I want to reach out more to them to find out what they valued from their experience, but also to find out, hey, what could we have done differently to better serve their needs as alums, right, and people in the workforce. So this is just some initial ideas on how I want to approach my presidency.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh my goodness.
Really,
Thank you,
really
Sarah.
appreciate that.
I really enjoyed
This was
that.
great.
Thank
And
you so much.
I hope this is great for the rest of the LMU community.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you too.